keeps going.
What is the Carto voice? That's what I was going to ask you.
That's a good question. Generic.
Did you do a Carto voice?
I don't think so.
Okay, gentlemen.
Do we have a recording of Carto's voice? No.
I think that was quite difficult to find.
Hold on, there is one. One sec.
He was a behind-the-scenes fella because of the way he was.
Exactly.
Face for radio, voice for miming.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
it.
here we
That's
go.
it.
I'll do my best. I was introduced to Lawrence Dennis by General Robert E. Wood, who was chairman of Sears and Roebuck. I met him in Chicago one day, and I was on a tour motoring around the country meeting patriots.
But he would suck as a
And
man.
so I stopped in Beckett, Massachusetts, and that's where Lawrence Dennis lived.
Is that him?
Mm-hmm.
It just sounds like we're at like a golf club.
This is American man
Presentation.
voice.
Yeah, yeah. Next year, in the third quarter, we're going to be seeing some changes to our insurance plans.
Because we agreed on so many things. I would say that probably he contributed more to my own personal intellectual development than anyone I can think of.
Fritz, there's going to be... I made
There's a twist today.
a weird surprise connection between someone in the populist party and something else that is
He won't tell
a
me.
staple of our show. I'm going to keep it as a secret.
Are there like... So it's Kavaya and the gang?
There's no Kavaya, but you'll see. You'll see. No, this one's, I think, very unexpected.
Okay.
You're trying to. I was trying to.
So
but
was
I
Charles
couldn't do it.
Manson a member of the Liberty Lobby?
No.
Okay.
He's going to try to spoil it the whole episode.
We'll get there.
Be
It
prepared.
might not be as hilarious to you as it was to me or exciting as it was to me, but I found it interesting.
It's Mary Pickford. Welcome to The Empire Never Ended with Boris, Fritz, and Ray.
Hey.
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 All right, good to be back in the studio.
We're all here with no Robo-Ray for this
No
episode.
robo anyone. We even have a gray eminence haunting us in the background today.
Without a mic.
Without a mic.
Without a mic.
Yeah. To, with facial gestures, criticize everything that Boris has to tell us.
That's right.
Yeah. Fact check, actually. He's going to be fact checking in silence over there today.
And much like Gray Eminences, this is part 3 and final part of our little Willis Carto Liberty Lobby series.
Willis Carto, I like to call him. I think he's fancy.
Is he?
He's the country club clan, you know?
Not that kind of fancy. I mean, we just listened to his voice. He has the most generic.
Yes, yeah.
That's
Midwestern
American
man
fancy,
voice.
which is not very fancy.
I'm trying to get the Prezi working, but I'm having Greg, come here. Can you, I don't know what to click.
I'd like to imagine what he's like when he's extremely angry. 'Cause I feel like he does get that way quite a lot, considering.
I hope his voice just changes a full octave upward.
Yes, upward.
Yes.
That's what I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Well, he's the guy who like inhales and it seems like he will yell and then he doesn't say anything.
He just buries it deep inside
then it's
him.
quiet and then he
Yes.
says something like, damn it.
Yeah, you're probably right, actually.
Oh,
he's
hell.
He's an American male. He eats that
Yeah.
shit until it becomes a cancer. Yeah. God damn it. That's what we do.
Helga, bring me my glass of milk.
Oh, yeah, he's a
I don't
milk
remember
guy.
what his wife's name is, but she's
Helga sounds right.
German. So
Yeah. Yeah,
she's Helga to me now.
that's right. She's some kind of Helga.
Yeah, so this is the end of our most famous turd polisher,
Yeah.
Willis Carto.
So he will die in this episode, huh?
He will die. Although I think I mentioned that he died last
Okay.
episode.
Yeah.
So we're actually kind of backtracking a little bit because in the last episode we covered Carto's more impactful and enduring projects, both of which he lost control of.
Yeah.
National Youth Alliance, which of course went to William Luther Pierce and became National Alliance, and the Holocaust Revisionist Project Institute for Historical Review.
Yeah. Both turds, both polished, both slipped away.
Indeed. And you
he
might
over polished them. Obviously, he couldn't keep a grip on them, and
they slide right out of his hands.
Soap. Yeah.
Except in the case of the Institute for Historical Review, it cost him his Liberty Lobby, which he had at that point for 43 years.
Yeah.
Or thereabouts. So yeah, it imploded as a result, if you remember, of a spectacular amounts of lawsuits and countersuits.
Yes.
Over control of the millions of dollars left to the IHR by Jean Edison Farrell, the Nazi heiress to Thomas Edison's family fortune. I just like saying that.
No, it's great. I would hear it again.
So I have put it in the recap. It's a funny thing to say.
Give it another round.
So yeah, in 2001, Liberty Lobby closes, of course, and he dies 14 years later. And they closed because of bankruptcy. And yeah, 40 some years of hard work in the Liberty Lobby down the toilet.
Yeah, well, it is a turd.
Oh, nice.
Thanks.
Nice one. So if we're going to do a little post-mortem here of the Liberty Lobby, I think it helps to look back and examine why the organization existed in the first place.
Yeah.
So in episode 1 of this series, we talked about why he founded the Liberty Lobby, right?
He's racist.
He's racist. He's racist and he likes Nazis.
Yeah.
But he was frustrated that the regular conservatives just aren't getting the whole Nazi thing enough.
Right.
In 1956.
They were closed-minded people.
They were closed-minded. A little thing happened just a bit before that kind of soured them to the whole swastika Nazi thing. And he thought that was quite unfortunate. And that if only he could just bring them together by, putting them all on the same newspaper and sending them off to his various mailing lists, that, the Republicans would become proper Nazis. Or we'll get to what he actually means by that.
Yeah, because he could probably be pretty satisfied, Yeah. He's at least 85% there. More.
But this frustration
100.
comes from, his imaginative newspaper named Right about the right wing. And then that wasn't getting enough people there, even though he was putting everybody on the same thing. And then he got increasingly more unhinged as Right went on.
Yes.
And he decided, okay, we can't just have a newspaper. We need to translate this into political action.
All right.
And political action means having an office on Capitol Hill and starting a lobbying group with an equally imaginative name of Liberty Lobby.
Make that money.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty amazing thing, though, that a Nazi group had a lobby group in DC. Also,
I think they were also kind of early to the big lobby gold rush too, I think.
Yeah.
They were one of the first major waves of lobbies.
Yeah.
That sort of started up there.
Carto understood what was happening in Washington.
He had his finger on the pulse.
He did. He actually does seem to have his finger on the pulse for certain things, but then loses control of it. And I think that's probably ultimately a good thing for everybody.
As opposed to him having his hand around your neck and keeping control.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, in the early days, the idea of the lobby, and this is something that they would kind of continue to work with over time, is to kind of form a party within the Republicans. Right. So Liberty Lobby would get people on their side, and then they would kind of, push through their agenda within the Republican Party. And then that, of course, all changed a little.
Because the American parties are not actually parties, no? So they're not like parties in a proper sense.
I mean, they are.
What do you mean? Yeah.
There's only two.
They're not like membership based. They're like registered voters kind of based, no?
Yeah, but they do have they have a huge employee structure and stuff. And I mean, I don't know.
They have their little conventions.
I wouldn't party with them.
Yeah,
if that's what you're saying. But they're not that different.
I know it's not like a structure that has actual political factions inside that do battles and then have debates and I don't know, some winner over the other and something like this.
I think that probably does go on, but in this very passive aggressive way, in this very waspy way.
Kind of not in the same way as a political party in Europe.
Right, exactly. Nobody's throwing rocks or anything like that, but they're
We're in most places where you have parties.
Most places where you have parties other than
you're right. You're right about that.
I mean, this is kind of more like
but it's waspy. It's just
the interfactional debates within like, the Communist Party of Vietnam or something, where there's like, people who are vying for, power and different factions went out and that kind of thing. Yeah. But,
I like though this revelation that they're not really a modern party. It's almost like, you got to kind of go back.
Back to the founding fathers, the original. Well, we'll get there.
Oh, is that the secret twist?
It's not the secret twist.
Is George Washington is his brain?
Oh, you'd be surprised to know, maybe
held by Willis Carto,
or maybe not, that Willis Carto, in speeches and writings, likes saying that George Washington would agree with Francis Parker Yockey over certain issues and the like. This is,
I'm not.
This is the heart. The
not only would I not be surprised, I think he's probably right.
Well, I don't know. I think Washington would be really confused about the whole space part of Yockey's writings. I think he might just have to take his word for it.
Yeah,
but
I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, we know that the Liberty Lobby then made the jump out of party within a party in 1968 to throw their weight behind the candidacy of Alabama segregationist George Wallace.
Yeah. Yep. Oh man, did we talk about him? Ace Carter writing speeches, some of the most famous speeches.
Yep,
some of the most famous speeches of the American right.
and writing stuff together with Carto.
Yeah.
And the whole Youth for Wallace thing.
A guy who had like a personal relationship with the leadership of the National States Rights Party.
Yeah.
Which is a neo-Nazi party.
Yeah.
Also a part of the Klan.
Neo-Nazi Klansters.
Yeah.
It just sounds great.
Yeah.
What's not the...
They would sit in the first rows of his speeches, like Ed Fields and the guys would, and Wallace would shake their hands after he gave a speech, which was written by one of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I think in the last episode we mentioned that even before Wallace announced his candidacy, they had that kind of planning meeting at that golf club in Alabama where there were members of Liberty Lobby and delegates from, I think, also National States Rights Party. Asa Carter was there, Klan. So, yeah, I mean, really all-star league. But I think Wallace's failure kind of had an impact on Carto. And like we said in the last episode, he spent the 70s basically building up Liberty Lobby's various publications, Spotlight notably, and others, and then eventually starting the Institute for Historical Review in 78.
Yeah. As opposed to Ace Carter's reaction, which was to become Native American.
Which is to become Native American children's writer.
Yes.
And then have a bestseller made by Clint Eastwood.
Pro-Confederacy novels.
Yeah.
Different strokes, different folks.
But I think that, I think in general, it seems like Carto's faith in the electoral process and working within the system kind of oscillated a lot, kind of between, total disillusionment and commitment. And I think this is generally his problem, being politically incoherent and embodying a lot of contradictions. Because, like I said before, he thought you could just bring all these people into a room and they'd all get along fine. They'd all realize what he realizes. And it turns out that they're the hilarious example of the Youth for Wallace thing of all these young Republicans showing up to a room full of Nazis and being like, what the fuck is this? It's kind of difficult for people to reconcile his Liberty Lobby's patriotic message and imagery with Yockey's on the reading list, and Yockey's kind of famously anti-Americanism kind of rubbed people the wrong way.
But I have to say, suffering through irreconcilable contradictions and their consequences is kind of a job hazard for fascists from day one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
We need a union with the bosses.
I think it's very particularly pronounced in the case of Carto, because most of the time, these organizations tend to have their own little platform, and then they split from there. American Nazi Party, National States Rights Party. Yeah. They're all kind of embodying a similar type of politics. And they usually fight over, mailing lists and who gets to control what and be the Fuhrer or whatever. With Liberty Lobby, it's kind of the opposite problem, because it's just really trying to bring everyone in there, and nobody seems to really like it. Because eventually they kick Carto out. Yeah, that's the story of his life.
Yes, it is. It is.
So, faced with all of these problems, and Liberty Lobby not really doing anything significant politically like that in the 70s. He attempts to articulate a political vision and platform in the 1980s.
Q, I don't know.
And
Sade, I don't know what to play now.
Okay.
Sting, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do Sting. You tell the story. Ready? Bum, bum, bum,
it's hard to think about the music of this because I think he just hated music.
Oh, yeah. Discotheque was our last episode on the Patreon. Yeah. The surprise only disco loving Nazi you will not hear about unless you go to our Patreon.
Yeah. But actually also go to the Patreon because some of the stuff that Ray talked about in the last National States Rights Party episode will be important just for context here, because some of those people would go on to be in Carto's movement as well. Yeah. And this all goes in a very typically Carto way, developing a political party and a political platform. He does it in a way that only he can.
So you're saying he fucks it up?
He fucks it up.
Yeah,
right. But doesn't fuck it up in like, a traditional American Nazi way. They're not shooting each other.
Right.
There's a lot of
right.
angry letters being exchanged, smearing in various newspapers, lawsuits, auditing, investigations, the legal system, that kind of Carto way.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is the true American way.
It is.
He really is.
Yeah.
He's the best.
It's the noble Aryan way too, that's how they express their berserker souls.
Yes.
It's by lawsuit after lawsuit.
There we go. So the term that Carto decided to go with is one that we hear a lot these days, which is populism.
Hey, yeah, it's a popular topic.
It's a popular topic, and I'm sure if Carto had lived just a few more years, he'd probably have a lot to say about how that term was used.
He'd be a regular on several YouTube shows, I think.
Yeah, YouTube for sure. I'm not sure about other things. We'll get to his legacy, I think, at the end of the episode if we have time.
Oh, we got it. We got time.
Yeah. So populism is his ideology. In 1982, he publishes a book called his very creative titles for everything.
Oh, God, is it The Book?
No, it is Profiles in Populism.
Oh.
Okay. Very exciting.
But I mean, it does feel like something that you could have if you're like a Nazi senator, one of those many choices you could pick from in this period. It's a book you could have on your shelf that would just sit there and no one would think twice about it.
Yeah. The second and the later editions are called Populism versus Plutocracy, the Universal Struggle, which I think is a better title, but still dull and unimaginative.
A little bit closer to Nazi language.
Getting there, but again, he pulls it back. He's always edging with the Nazi language.
He doesn't scream, "We are Nazis."
Right.
And I think,
maybe that's what he does when he goes home and he's angry. He just screams into a pillow, "I'm a Nazi."
Yeah. He goes to his basement where he has the picture of Adolf Hitler and a swastika flag, and he Zeke Heils for half an hour, and then he's ready for sleep.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And then he goes back to, look at this cover. It's boring. It's just American patriotic.
Yeah.
I'm like craning to see, but I also don't care. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That would sit on any fucking normal ass person's bookshelf.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a book. Is Hitler in it? Like, what's
no? We'll get there in just a sec. It's an interesting choice of terms too, because populism does have a historical meaning in America, like that kind of agrarian, more like left-wing agrarian movement.
Until, of course, fucking Louisiana guy. Oh shit! What's his name?
Larry O'Shit.
Larry O'Shit.
Yeah.
Huey Long.
Yeah.
So let me start that over.
That's kind of a fascist.
Yeah, until Huey Long kind of changed the.
He's like the second guy in his person was Gerald L.K. Smith, right?
Yeah.
So who?
Yeah. But I think this is when populism sort of left the left, I guess.
Yeah.
And found a home in the third way.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think if you're confused about this, Carto will meticulously explain to you in 287 pages of profiles of the great men of history who to him define the meaning of populism.
Oh man.
And so I think
that makes sense because like in Europe they took the term socialism, so it would make sense. Like, this was kind of an American equivalent of that.
Sure.
Like, you know?
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely right. National populism.
Yeah.
Sure.
He actually, his definition of fascism is a type of right-wing authoritarian populism.
Okay.
And that was what was necessary in Europe at the time because they were faced with like armed communists on the streets and they needed to take decisive measure. America doesn't and historically hasn't had that same problem. And therefore fascism in America is also right-wing populist, but not authoritarian in the same way.
Okay.
That's his definition of fascism. So I think I mentioned some of the characters in the table of contents in the first episode that we did about him, but I'm going to read through the entire table of contents now so we can get exactly who he's profiling as these heroes of populism, and then we can read a couple little segments from the introduction.
I realize you're talking to your wife.
All right. Now we'll take it from the top. The first one is Thomas Jefferson,
Oh.
the magnificent populist.
Mm-hmm.
The second,
I'm sorry. They each have like a little Pokemon
each
title.
have, yes.
So you can collect them all.
There's a name and a colon and then a descriptor for every single
love it.
person, and there are a lot of them. Like
I
I said.
love it. Give it to me.
So yeah, Thomas Jefferson, the magnificent populist. Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory, bane of the bankers.
Dark Souls boss, says the peanut gallery. Yeah.
Carto loved Andrew Jackson, which doesn't surprise me at all.
No.
He's one of the most biggest monsters of
Yeah. Well,
US
Carto
history.
also wants to move lots of people around.
He was like anti-Fed, right? Was his whole thing?
Well, and like Trail of Tears,
deeply
ethnic cleansing.
anti-indigenous too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge
Yeah.
racist. And then Thomas Edison, an American original.
An American original. Okay.
I mean, the guy who stole a bunch of shit from other people.
From
yeah.
from Tesla.
That's
Yeah,
how you
so-
make them American.
From the Balkan original.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the Balkan original was stolen to make the American original.
That's right.
Then Senator Robert La Follette,
Oh,
Fighting Bob.
yeah. I remember that.
There are a
guy,
lot
but
of
why?
random senators here. Senator Thomas Watson, the voice of the true South. These are kind of more.
This sounds like a book like that would be written by Ezra Pound.
Yes, it does, actually.
Ezra Pound's in here too.
Hey-o.
He's a populist as well. But before Ezra Pound, we get to William Randolph Hearst, the populist press lord. Henry Ford, A New Outlook in Industry.
Oof.
Hiram Johnson,
You got a
California's.
populist Henry Ford.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, he likes him for very obvious reasons.
There's so many to choose from.
Yeah.
You know,
All of them. I
all
think.
of them. Yeah.
Let's see. Hiram Johnson, California's pioneering progressive. William Murray, Alfalfa Bill. Robert McCormick, Voice of the Heartland. H.L. Mencken, the Sage of Baltimore. Senator Burton K. Wheeler, Montana's Maverick. We know Burton K. Wheeler. When did we talk about him? It was pretty recently, no?
He's back in the American First days. He was one of the fuckers that walked around with speeches written by Nazi agent George Sylvester Viereck.
Right.
And was helping George turn a stable of senators into a free printing press for Nazi propaganda out of the U.S. Senate for several years.
Right.
That was him. That was that guy. I think La Follette was like a progressive of that old style. I believe that he gave us the right to work state ultimately, which was the bane of my existence growing up.
So I'm guessing Martin Luther King is not.
He's not in profiles of populism, no. In fact, after Burton K. Wheeler is Ezra Pound, the prisoner of St. Elizabeth's.
Oh, okay, yes.
After Ezra Pound, going down the list, Rep. Hamilton Fish, patriot for a century. We just talked about him.
We did, and he was American Legion guy. He was one of those ultra fascists in the early American Legion, and also was part of that crazy printing scandal. Yeah. These are his people.
This is
so two of them are Nazi propagandists.
Yeah.
Like literally Nazi propagandists, whether or not they knew about it. But I mean,
Ezra knew about it.
Yeah. Well, yes. So three.
Yeah.
Well, he's an Italian fascist, but also both, right? I mean, he propagandized fascism in
fascist
general.
propaganda.
Yeah.
I mean, in Henry Ford. Kind of in that vein.
Yeah.
Then following that is Senator Robert A. Taft, Mr. Integrity. Not one I'm familiar with. Senator George W. Malone, Engineering American Self-Sufficiency.
He sounds like a Nazi.
And then a big hit of the show, Father Charles Coughlin.
Wow.
Populist pastor, the radio priest.
Of all those people, Coughlin actually was kind of a populist.
Yeah.
In a weird way. Because he was giving like populist spins on the fascier side of Catholicism.
I forget the name of the guy that we covered. Lawrence
Dennis.
He's not a guy.
He's coming up.
No way.
He's there. Okay.
So Father Coughlin, then Senator Huey P. Long, the Kingfish of Louisiana.
There we go.
So there actually is a black man there.
Well,
there is a black man there. I think, he might not have known this.
I think they forgot that again.
He forgot this again. Yeah.
At that point.
And then Loris Dennis, the populist
Amazing.
intellectual.
How about that?
Followed by another big heavy hitter, Charles A. Lindbergh, America First and Always.
It's interesting that his nickname there is intellectual, which is, look, we said kind of he's unusually smart for American fascists when we covered him. And
I mean, we
Carto
called him the brain or whatever.
Yeah.
Or other people called him the brain.
Yeah.
And we confirmed it.
Yes. He had thoughts. Yeah.
Then after Lindbergh, we got Mayor Frank Rizzo, Philadelphia Cisco kid. Frank Rizzo, famous racist mayor of Philadelphia. Well, not best known, but very well known for, the move bombing where he aerially bombarded West Philly.
Yeah.
And deeply racist cop and son of a cop.
Nice. True populist, man of the people.
Son of a cop.
And then after Rizzo, it's just other populists and nationalists, Americans true.
Okay.
And then voices of populist nationalism in opposition to American intervention in European war. And then finally, was Jesus Christ a populist?
Oh, I'm going to guess.
The question.
Oh, that's a tough one, actually. How is he going to answer that?
Yes.
Because he wants to get the Christians?
He wants to get the Christians, and he wants to differentiate himself from the Christian right.
This is 82, right?
Right.
Okay,
I mean, Liberty Lobby is not going to go anti-Christian.
But I don't think it would have been an issue in like 76, right?
Yeah,
like
but if he mentions him, he's going to say yes.
Okay.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, this is where he's facing the big crisis because the Christian right's on the rise.
Yeah.
He hates them because they're all huge Zionists and pro-Israel, and he absolutely can't stand that. I mean, because he himself, most people think that he's an atheist. He was never really clear about that, but of course he has this idea of Christian civilization, the value of Christian civilization.
Yeah, he doesn't seem religious.
Blah, blah, blah.
You don't get a religious vibe.
He has a secret, like Hitler shrine in the basement, but otherwise...
Yeah, that's more for meditation.
Yes.
Spirituality.
The conclusion is, yes, Jesus was a populist, and he was a populist because the Jews betrayed him or whatever. And
Okay.
Which was my reading of the very cursory glance I took at that chapter because there's too much here.
So he was a populist, but the populists betrayed him. I mean, there's like the
Popolo.
Yeah.
The actual Popolo.
Yeah.
Well, he has a little different reading of things. Keep in mind, the Christians he is friends with are Christian identity people. So
their handle on the Bible
is a
amazing.
little bit different than most
very
people.
creative.
Yes.
It's all about aliens. I knew James would come up at some point. There he is.
There he is.
And
then, of course, there's a conclusion, a populist glossary, and a history of Liberty Lobby, just in case you needed it.
Oh, man, I don't think we do anymore. This is episode 3. I think we've fucking got it.
I will go back at some point to the preface of the second edition because it's very petty.
Good.
In a great way, but we'll get there once we have a reason to be petty. And Fritz, I'm wondering if you can maybe read us part of to get a sense.
Very insulting question. You've seen me read before. I can do it. What the fuck?
Let's see. Part of the introduction.
Ray's not even looking at me right now.
Parts of the introduction.
You guys both thought this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know.
Amazing.
I thought that you listened to Mason's book on tape of Siege.
The only thing I listen to is... That's it. Just that clip, actually. Not even the whole song.
How about... Okay. It might be too much, but you can always cut it if it is. And then...
Enough of this. I can read, all right? It's not too much. I know words. All right. I got to get my... I got to picture myself in a polo shirt with like a slideshow presentation about a recent drop in earnings in our department. All right. America today, as a nation, culture, and way of life, is threatened by mounting and unprecedented economic, social, and political turbulence. The disintegration of American society, which has accompanied the decline of America's strategic position in the world since 1945, is a direct result of the system of monopoly finance capitalism and economic royalism, which came to dominate the nation during the 20th century. Capitalism, as distinguished from free enterprise. How about that?
What happened in 45, I wonder?
Nothing much. Nothing much. It's probably in the book somewhere. Capitalism, as distinguished from free enterprise, is a force for instability and revolution. The revolutionary dynamics of monopoly capitalism, a system which is alien to American tradition, are directly responsible for the political, economic, and social quandary in which Americans find themselves in the last quarter of what was supposed to be the, quote, American century. Which we've also brought up on the show not long ago. Mm-hmm. This is all on topic here.
Yep.
The solution, then, to the problems posed by the alien system of economic royalism and monopoly is to return to American tradition. America's authentic political heritage is the great body of philosophy and practical political thinking, which has come to be known as populism. Populism is the only social, economic, and political system which withstands the destructive and degenerative effects of modern industrial society on the family, nation, race, and culture. Populism is a force for stability, creating a tranquil society in which individual and cultural growth can occur without progress being threatened or exploited by alien forces promoting cultural distortion. A stable society develops and thrives when populist principles are applied because the primacy of the nation, culture, family, people, and race in public policy is ensured. To the survival and growth of all of these, all other considerations are subordinate. The assault of internationalism upon our country is total in nature and aims at nothing less than the complete annihilation of our political system, our culture, and even all interpersonal relationships. This regressive aim is put forward as great progress, but the end goal is to structure all society as a beehive, with equal bees carefully tended by omnipotent financiers or commissars who gather the honey. This is a perfect metaphor. It's working out really well for him. Mm-hmm. Just like the beehives and their commissars.
Yes.
We all know about the commissar bees, no?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Some call it communism, a society of two classes, the very rich and the slaves. Others call it monopoly capitalism. Both are correct. In the new global society envisioned by the planners and social change advocates, the class constituting of the destitute poor will consist of the newly impoverished former middle class. Meanwhile, the super rich, as the saying goes, will be with you always. I'm not familiar with that saying.
No. What is the saying?
I guess it's the super rich will be with you always. Remember, my son, the super rich will be with you always. I mean, maybe his dad did tell him.
Is that Star Wars?
Yeah. I think it might be. Yes.
Super rich will be with you always.
Rampant inflation caused by crushing interest rates, enormous federal deficits, and ruinous taxation are designed by the super rich to dispossess the middle class and bring about a return to virtually medieval conditions, this time in the global plantation.
He's against the Middle Ages?
He's against it for now. Hold on.
Okay.
Historically, populism has always carried a strong agrarian component, but populism can develop, and indeed did, up through the 1940s to meet the changing conditions in a developing industrial and technological society. Now I've got some slides I want to show you here. The first, let's pull that up there. That's this first one says nationalism versus internationalism. Let's go to the next one there. That's a shadowy elite to rule. Next slide.
Wonder who that is.
Next slide. Next slide. Next slide! Well, West exhausted. And we got here racial confusion. Just clicking through here. Fairy tale of equality. Notice the single
Fairy
quotes.
tale of equality is a pretty good one there. Yeah. I mean, that one and the other racial one is just, it's pretty racist.
Economic determinism. Old Hickory was populist.
Economic what?
Economic determinism.
Determinism, okay.
Yeah, sorry. It's I'm drunk.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, what a great presentation.
Yeah.
I like the visuals.
I mean, you see a little bit. You definitely see Lawrence Dennis in there.
Yeah. It's you can tell he's speaking. He's trying to activate a similar audience, even if maybe Lawrence was maybe going for an income bracket above who Carto's going for.
But he's starting off strong and saying that capitalism is the problem, which I think is like a shocking thing to most American right wingers. Yeah. And then he differentiates that from the free market or whatever.
Right. Yeah. An American tradition. And how like it seems like he's open to an American variety of capitalism somehow, right? Like he's just saying that these are elements in capitalism today that are not American. They don't fit us.
Yeah. I mean, that like finance capital. I mean, this is what we've talked about over and over again.
Yes.
There's the good and the bad capitalists, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascist critique of capitalism.
Yeah. Yes.
And then, of course, interesting choice of words with saying that the American society is going to turn into the new plantation or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's again
global plantation.
Global plantation. Yeah. It's this constant projection that they have.
I mean,
they're going to recreate the Confederacy globally, which is, I think, what, a lot of guys that he wants he's attracting this party would like.
Racist guy from the States who wants an agrarian society, and he's against the plantation.
The global plantation. He likes localized plantations that he doesn't have to work on.
Okay,
I think.
Yeah, because like his whole racial policy that he outlines here is that all races have the right to develop on their own terms without interference from other races
because of the organism from Yaki. Yeah, you need to feed it,
and that makes him not racist, but believer in true equality because we have this fairy tale of equality.
It's like with the sexes, everyone has their own role in the society,
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's like not a question of better or something.
Or worse.
It's just like you have your own place.
Right.
Someone has a slave society that you can freely develop.
Yeah.
And someone is a master.
You're in charge of giving birth, and we're in charge of making sure you don't have the resources to do it safely.
Yeah,
but like I'm curious about his stance towards slavery in the old South and all that kind of stuff, because I'm sure that he would say probably that the worst excesses of slavery were caused by the Jews, because a lot of them say that.
Oh my God, that's still a thing now. I mean, it's never not going to be a thing.
It's never not going to be a thing, and it's very interesting. But I have to think that there's also a hint of the basis of his Holocaust denial. And I'm going to paraphrase him here. I didn't say it in the last episode, but I wanted to. I'm going to paraphrase him, but I read it over and over again. So it's pretty clear in my mind.
Okay.
Where he said something about I mean, it's like Myatt's Magian myth of the Holocaust. It's a basis of a lot of Holocaust denial.
Holocaustianity, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. But what he says when talking about the Holocaust is that if a Western society were to do something like that, that would negate its right to exist anymore.
Well, he's going to be really surprised. It can't be real,
yes. And it has to be overplayed because it threatens the very fundamental component of Western society, and that's that
Well, I think the point of that is to say that it's a lie, right? It's like
right. But if it were true, Western society wouldn't have a right to exist.
Well, then,
but I think they feel the same way about slavery too.
Yeah, I think they make that point because they want to say that the people who say it happened they want to destroy the Western civilization. Right?
Yes, but he also says explicitly, if it were true, then Western civilization couldn't go on. It's such a monstrosity of history.
But I think that's like what David Miles says, they keep us enslaved by this idea of the Holocaust.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's, I think, the point. Like, they
Yes.
want to deny our whole civilization.
Yeah, right.
By that.
But it's an interesting way of formulating that, because I think on some level he believes that like, you know, if it were true that, you know, if he believed
it's
that,
certainly different from
a
the
model
guys,
Western society, you know, industrially butchered people, then that society wouldn't have the right to exist.
Yeah,
and I think they feel that way. That's why they're like also criticizing the plantation, because to them, you know, he's saying the slave masters were probably good and whatever. Like the whole, you know, kind of thing you see with racists talking about slavery, and that the excesses are either exaggerated or coming from, you know, like the Jewish owners or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's definitely different from the kind of usual Nazi thing of saying, well, the Holocaust didn't happen, but it should have happened.
Yeah.
Like, or something like that. So like he's really going on to like and
again, he's also appealing to the middle class here a lot, which I don't know if you noticed.
Did he die because he accidentally read People's History of the United States? Did he just like...
He would have been kind of late to that. No, he died in 2015.
I mean, he probably, you know, it takes time.
It takes time.
But it also makes sense, like, you know, like if you, like we know, like from our episodes on the National States Rights Party, that like you had like people in the Klan in the 50s and 60s who thought the NSRP is overdoing the anti-Semitism. So it would make sense that someone who wants to have like a broader appeal in American society would say, okay, we don't support the Holocaust.
Historically unpopular.
Yeah,
the Holocaust.
Even probably among anti-Semites. Like, I don't think all anti-Semites, probably most anti-Semites would say that they wouldn't support the Holocaust. Like,
that's true today.
Yeah,
when I watch them on YouTube.
Yeah, also I think probably when in the 70s or wherever these people were doing this, 80s. I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
well, thank you, Carto, for setting up all of that for us to enjoy today.
Yeah,
the fruits of all his labors. Nick Fuentes, thank you.
Yeah, which doesn't mean that they wouldn't actually support it. They would just say that they don't support. Like, like a lot of like people like that in Germany. I think we mentioned this before. Objected to the like street violence against the Jews, but we kind of didn't have a problem. It was more kind of industrialized violence that didn't see. And when once it was made legal, and went through proper channels.
Oh yeah, that's all they want.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all they wanted.
Yeah.
So I mean, that gives you at least a little bit of an idea of what Carto's philosophy is, right? It's a mixture of this kind of typical American right wing stuff, especially when you get to the like immigration stuff, which is, you know, like whatever. The movement of entire populations of North Africans to Europe, Caribbean refugees to the U.S., hordes of Mexican and Latin American mestizos to America, swarms of Asiatic people. This is very typical American anti-immigrant stuff.
But he loves Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. That's different. But then mixed in with some of his kind of more little like unique fascist twists, like this kind of Lawrence Dennis Ezra Pound reading of capitalism.
The thinking man's fascism.
Also, it was called by August Babel, or it was called the Socialism of Imbeciles.
There you go. Well, that's another name for the thinking man's fascism. The socialism of idiots. Yes. Yeah.
So Carto goes ahead then, and a couple years later, so this comes out, I think, in 82, 84, he founds the Populist Party.
Yeah.
It's officially established. And in typical Carto fashion, he didn't want to be the face of the party, instead opting to be the chairman of effectively their Politburo, you know, where everything decide their politics.
Not like those beehives with their commissars going around.
Yeah. Politically, of course, the party reflected Carto's populist politics that he outlined in his profiles of populism.
Yeah.
So, you know, all the hot button issues for the right wing of the day, gun control, taxes, the new world order, immigration, and then, you know, of course, the anti-Zionism and racism. And the party brought together members of other failed or small far-right parties. So the Constitution Party, which you mentioned, I think in your last episode.
I think I think we first mentioned it when we had an episode about Pedro del Valle and his group.
I believe you're right.
I think it was their political faction.
Yeah.
Which Pedro del Valle, not openly, but said in his writing that it's a cover for their paramilitary activities.
Yeah. And also associate of Willis Carto and Liberty Lobby as well.
Yeah.
Then, the American Independent Party. And as any respectable third party, any party that's trying to make it into the mainstream, their first chairman was a Mississippi Klansman by the name of Robert Weems.
Weems.
Just like...
Oh, imagine if it was Judge Weems. Damn.
He was a chaplain, I think, for the Klan.
I see.
The
Klan had... Sorry, why did I say that like that was the thing I knew about? The Klan had chaplains.
Yeah, they have chaplains.
Did not know that, actually.
And just a couple years before this, Weems was hanging out and photographed with, people like Don Black right before his failed invasion of Dominica.
We got to cover that.
Weems, like a bunch of other people in the party, had been previously active in the National States Rights Party as well.
Okay. God, who wasn't?
Like the vice chairman of the party was a guy named A.J. Barker, also National States Rights Party guy.
I don't know why that name is making me giggle, but it really is.
Jerry Pope.
A.J. Barker.
Was Jerry Pope a guy you mentioned?
I don't remember.
Well, he's a NSRP guy who was the chairman of the Populist Party in Kentucky. So,
Jerry, I think Jerry was the name of the guy, of the brother of the guy who killed MLK, but it wasn't Pope.
It wasn't Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Other local officials in the party came from various Christian identity groups. Guys like Colonel Jack Moore, the militia movement, Posse Comitatus guys Posse Comitatus guys like Joseph Birkenstock, which I think is a great name.
What are you doing to me? I can't get over AJ Barker, and you're just throwing Joe Birkenstock.
Joe Birkenstock from Posse Comitatus.
No, this isn't real.
All these guys have pretty good names. No, Weems,
Oof.
Pope, Moore.
I mean, Jack Moore is also fun.
Jack Moore is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Colonel Jack Moore.
Oh, God. Okay.
Who was a Christian identity guy. And he comes up. Where did I see him? Oh, yeah. We'll get to that in a second.
His brother, no fap.
Yeah.
They don't get along.
No.
Oh, Christ. Yeah, so Weems didn't last too long as the chairman of the party. He was replaced by former Olympic pole vaulting medalist and Wheaties cereal mascot Bob Richards.
Oh God, I've been waiting for this clip.
Please.
All night.
Please.
All right. Should I play it right now?
Yeah, might as well. Come on.
Cool. So let's give it a context. This is some fucking actual Wheaties commercial that was.
It's an actual Wheaties. Okay, so
when was it? 63.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Richards was, like I said, a Olympic medal winning pole vaulter, and was famous for being on the cover of the Wheaties box for quite some time. For I guess listeners outside the U.S., that is breakfast cereal that frequently features sports stars to emphasize that it's the healthy choice.
Right. Yeah. Michael Jordan was on.
it for a long time.
Kid,
so I think Bob Richards was the Michael Jordan of that time.
Well, they both like a Hitler stash.
Yeah. Bob Richards does not have a Hitler stash.
I'm saying they like one.
Yeah. So he became. I guess he was a right wing guy and. Was selected to be. I mean, he is actually a very good choice for like a party calling themselves the Populist Party.
Yes,
it's a household name, recognizable figure, and he was known to be like also like a motivational speaker, positive type guy. Right?
Perfect American Nazi. All
so
right.
play the commercial.
Here we go.
To you by Today's Wheaties, the cereal with a kernel full of whole wheat energy in every flake.
True.
Today's Wheaties, breakfast of champions.
That's Scotch.
I'm Bob Richards, and many of you know that for the past few years, I've been talking to you about Wheaties on television. You know, it's a rather humorous thing, but everywhere I go throughout the country, young people come up to me and they say, Bob, do you really eat Wheaties? Well, actually, I've eaten them for over 20 years, and I chuckle with them and I say, I've eaten them since the days of Jack Armstrong, and I still do.
They don't allow anything else in the A&P.
We don't beat the drums or shake the roof. We just talk about the wholesome goodness of whole wheat flakes. Wheaties, breakfast of champions.
We don't beat the drums or bang the roof. We just talk about the wholesome goodness of whole wheat flakes.
Yep. The roof.
There's a lot of, I think, Nazi symbolism in the idea of seeking a whole wheat, like a pure flake.
Sure.
Of course, drowned in the purest white milk.
Right. And so this guy is the guy who succeeded a former Klansman and National States Rights Party person as head of the party.
Kids come up to me all the time and they say, "Are you a Klansman?" And I say, "Oh, sure am. I don't bang the drums or hit the roof, but I do burn a cross."
Yeah. And before I move forward with Bob Richards, I want to drop my fun fact about another celebrity supporter of the Populist Party.
Okay.
And that is Ty Hardin. TV actor Ty Hardin, who's the star of the Western TV series Bronco in the 50s and 60s, and dozens of other Western movies. The reason why I thought this was interesting is that he later did spaghetti westerns in Italy and starred in a Yugoslav partisan movie called Requiem. In the U.S., I guess it was called Guerrilla Raid, along with celebrated Yugoslav actors like Abdurrahman Shalja. And
who did he play? Do you know?
He plays, I don't know, I guess
in the partisan movie.
It is a partisan. He plays the good guys. He's a partisan, I think, or a commando of some kind.
Interesting.
And it's a movie that I have seen, and it's not like one of the biggest hits. But I remember
he stopped being an anti-communist by then. What happened?
Well, he I think was never a Nazi. He was more in the militia anti-tax thing.
Sure.
Okay.
Close.
But that's for sure anti-communist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, a job's a job.
Yeah.
He's out there working. But that movie's interesting because it has like a really cool UMEX / Spanish style soundtrack.
All right.
And it's very much like a partisan Western. And it's filmed in Herzegovina and the kind of arid areas, and they're riding horses and shit.
Sounds pretty sweet.
There are partisan movies that are like Western.
Yes. And this is definitely one of them, which is why they selected a at this point, pretty washed up Western star, Ty Hardin, who, was, I guess, had a group called Arizona Patriots later.
Oh, that's not a
and
good
was,
name.
very much part of this militia, era of militia movement.
What do they call their law? Common law. I forget what the name they have.
Yeah.
He sounds like one of these guys.
Yeah.
Especially I think that's exactly who militia. Yeah.
That's exactly who he is. So he was a Populist Party supporter. Not something I expected when I went into this episode. And I was like, oh, Ty Hardin. Let me look him up, see what movies he was in. If anything I recognize. I'm like,
damn.
Okay.
Interesting. He could maybe he was I
guess we should watch that movie.
We probably should watch it.
Maybe he was doing some listening. Maybe he was hit up by the feds or something to go and.
I doubt it. I mean, Yugoslavia was hiring every actor they could get their hands on that would do that kind of stuff. I mean, for the big budget movies, they got bigger stars, Richard Burton,
right?
Whatever.
Listen,
Yul Brynner.
For a small thing, just get an American Nazi.
Yeah. He wants to meet one, we did cover enormous amounts of partisan films way back for any new listeners back in Arc 2, I think, maybe towards the end. We did a couple passes on partisan films. Go check it out.
And the last arc as well. We
really
covered a couple. Or we not partisan films, but we did some we did TV series. We did.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it's out there.
Do you want to take a quick break?
I do.
All right.
Hey, now, Willis, we're going down memory lane here, and I think probably the listeners are enjoying this as much as, I've heard all these stories before, but I know that most of our listeners haven't. I'd like you to tell a story which particularly amuses me about the time that there's this very famous, and he's now famous, but at the time no one knew who he was, named James Jesus Angleton. He was the third-ranking CIA official, and he was the He was the Mossad's man at the CIA, and as my book Final Judgment points out, at least to my satisfaction, he was a key player in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, among other crimes he committed over the years. And you actually had the audacity to approach Mr. Angleton in a public place one time, and I think our listeners would find the story as funny as I do. So why don't you tell the story?
That was great fun. I was having dinner with Victor Marchetti in a restaurant. It was a Russian restaurant, and someplace where where the CIA guys would always meet. Now Victor was himself CIA. He was sort of a backslider. He slid away. He couldn't. He is a patriotic American, and so I was. So we were talking there, and Victor said, Willis. He says that's Angleton. And I looked up, and there was this gaunt spectacle of a man with glasses there, and so I got up with a big grin on my face, and I held out my hand, and I said, Mr. Angleton, I'm so proud, I'm so happy to meet you. My name is Willis Carto. And Mike, his eyes widened. He looked like he was going to have a heart attack. Because, of course, he knew all about me. And the last person he expected was me, I guess.
Well, I guess it would terrify a lot of people to meet you, Willis. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Michael Collins Piper coming to you from Washington on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Stay tuned for the big wrap-up.
All right, so the Populist Party is formed. It's up. It's running. Yep. Carto is the gray eminence, the chairman.
He's the chairman of the political committee or whatever.
He knows he's wise enough to keep his face behind the curtain.
But is there these people always have either a gray eminence or like a sort of charismatic leader who's also like...
Well, I think Carto's Carto's perpetual problem is that he can't do either. He's not good at being a gray eminence.
Yeah.
And he's not good at being a leader.
He did organize a group that were like semi-successful at least.
He started
only successful after they came out of his control.
Ah, true. Okay. Yeah, because when they booted him, that's when Liberty Lobby became like...
No, well, Liberty Lobby is the only thing that he controlled the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it was semi-successful.
It was semi-successful, except that all of the bigger projects it tried to do to have more political influence didn't really succeed.
I mean, they're not like able, so William Pierce, his rival, so they had a rivalry, but also kind of a respect for each other, right?
Yeah.
Free Holy.
That guy. He was kind of a more kind of gray eminence guy, but he ended up being the leader, like the front guy.
Yeah.
Which he's not suited to be, right?
No, he's very hard to listen to and look
He's
at.
kind of a more kind of Carto guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any charisma at all.
No.
But I think if Carto had just stepped into the leadership position in any of these, he could have kept it going longer. His problem is that he keeps making other people chairman of everything that he starts.
No, but because he doesn't he's not a leader. He has minus 1,000 charisma. No,
yes, that's a tough role.
I mean, does anyone of these guys that we covered have charisma?
Rockwell, right? That's charismatic.
Yeah, Rockwell is charismatic in a demented way, but he's a showman.
Yeah, you can't take your eyes off him. He's always doing something.
He's got the outfits. He has his trademark.
Yeah, making a show.
I mean, he has charisma, but in a very limited way. He's entertaining.
But listen, we just had Bob Richards, right?
So
that guy had charisma. He's a motivational speaker.
So, but okay, Bob Richards. So let's get into Bob Richards. Okay. So Bob Richards gets selected to be their candidate for the 1984 elections.
Well, there you go. That doesn't make sense. He's a face. He's a voice.
Yeah, and it seems like it would be a pretty good choice, right? Yeah, he's a recognizable figure. He's well liked and all that.
So fucking crazy that Wheaties had a Klan spokesman.
Not Klan.
He wasn't Klan.
No, he wasn't Klan.
Okay.
He's only part of... I guess he had been probably a Liberty Lobby sympathizer before, but he's recruited into the Populist Party.
Okay.
And as we'll see, he doesn't actually last all that long either. So his running mate is a wonderful character, Maureen Kennedy Salomon. Now, just take a look at her and...
Oh, that's a very small picture.
I know, but can you get a very like that era human?
You know who she kind of reminds me of is like, yes, kind of like Megyn Kelly, but in the 80s.
What do you think her job was?
Oh, I would say whatever she got her degree in, it was from DeVry. And
she was prominently. She's a big figure in like the alternative medicine.
There we go. Okay. All right.
Like quackery world.
Yeah.
She was the president of the National Health Federation, which has, I'm just going to tell you real quick, just from the Wikipedia.
Yeah, please.
Is a lobbying group which promotes natural medicine. The NHF is based in California and described its mission as protecting individuals' rights to use dietary supplements and alternative therapies without government restriction. They also oppose mainstream public health measures such as water fluoridation and compulsory childhood vaccines.
Nice.
Blah, blah, blah.
So they're probably still going strong.
Yeah, I think they still exist.
Yeah,
but,
that never went out of style.
The NHF was founded by Fred J. Hart in 1955 and was ordered by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to cease marketing fraudulent radionic devices.
Radionics! That takes us all the way back to the psionic fucking petology.
I thought you'd like that. Mainstream medical organizations have criticized the NHF for promoting dubious alternative cancer treatments and health claims. The American Cancer Society recommends that cancer patients avoid products promoted by the NHF, while Quackwatch describes NHF as antagonistic to accepted scientific methods as well as to current consumer protection law.
Dude, that lady with that hairstyle has crystals for sure.
You know, this sounds like an early connection between the kind of the alternative health movement with Nazi shit, but this actually goes way back.
It goes way back. Yeah.
We should probably cover that at some point.
I think we should, because it really stretches, and internationally that's the case too.
Like, but there's also, there's a direct connection between like 20s, 30s Germany and California in like the 40s and 50s. There were like
with like alternative medicine and stuff like this.
With like proto hippie people, but that in Germany were connected also with like proto Nazi stuff, and then it's kind of transplanted to California with like this kind of like already in the 40s, like basically hippies, 20 or 15 years before it became a thing, which were called nature boys. You heard about it?
No.
They were connected kind of to the counterculture, the beatniks, jazz, and were like living in the nature and so on.
Interesting.
And were like, one of them was the originator of the smoothie. Yes.
Wow.
And they were like the owners of the first health food stores.
And connected to fascists how?
Well, so in Germany, it had a connection with the fascists. I'm not sure if these people had connection with the fascists in California, except that I think I have a feeling that they were kind of prototypes for Charles Manson. A lot of them were extremely similar to him, but just before he appeared. But yeah,
sounds like we got a inter-arc mini arc.
Indeed,
ready to go here.
There are books about this, we can study it.
Fuck yeah,
yeah. So great running mate, and she stayed a Carto loyalist to the very end.
Awesome.
So it's really that perfect mix of charismatic figure with like alternative medicine, but that kind of like rich conservative alternative medicine, the perfect type of anti-vaxxer. You know what I mean? That's just like this.
So it was Richards as the presidential candidate, and she was running as
the vice president. This is
it has echoes somehow of John McCain and Sarah Palin in a way, doesn't it? There's like a vague
except that John McCain didn't really drop out of the race, and Richards did.
Yeah.
So Richards almost immediately got into a fight with Carto, as almost everybody does.
He met him.
Yeah.
He had more than one conversation with him in person that wasn't like, in some letter-headed letter that he got from him.
Yeah, it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
So he actually, I think, withdrew from the race while like it was going on.
Nice.
But they were already on the ballot in a bunch of states. And so they ended up actually picking up 66,000 votes, which isn't bad for like a weird Nazi third party.
The first run too.
In the first run.
Yeah.
But that's the most that they would ever get. And I think largely this is because Liberty Lobby and a lot of these other far right groups were capitalizing on the farm crisis at the time in the 80s. And this is like a big thing, like
hence the word populism, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is perfect for them, but like, I don't know, Geraldo had that, there was Geraldo's 2020 investigation about Nazis in the farm crisis that was called, what the fuck was it? It had a great name. Seeds of Hate.
Nice. Yes. Yes.
Which is all about like, I think
the fruit of discord.
Geraldo discovers like Christian identity is a thing at that point. Like, you know, it's from like this time in the 80s. So this is kind of
we
like,
should be watching. I mean, it's Geraldo.
We should watch actually Seeds of Hate.
Sounds great. Because
it'll have, I think, almost all the people I mentioned up above, like Colonel Jack Moore and shit like that. It was like
yeah, everyone missed it when it was first mentioned. No one took notice of it.
Well, but that's because there were guys like, what's his name, like Joe Birkenstock or whatever. That was like fucking
Jack Moore is fun.
Jack Moore is pretty good.
Ray's watching a masturbation joke, just like waltz out of the room like
no
it never walked in.
Yeah, no one took notice.
Yeah. And he stood up like a man.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, even though they selected what should have been a pretty good candidate, and they did relatively well considering it was their first run.
Yeah.
Carto is just not good at this. Like, I mean, he's just not good with other people, and the party started to fracture even further.
Yeah.
And so, like in typical form, Carto accused Richards of being close with a known like ADL agent in like Israel or whatever, because that's just what he does. So Carto is bad at people, and the party after the 84 election starts to split and basically completely fractures and then starts again in 86. Now, out of Carto's mouth as to how this happened, I'll take from the introduction to Populism versus Plutocracy, because he has a little petty quibble there. Since 1982, populism has had a genuine rebirth, and this book and the work of Liberty Lobby must take appropriate credit.
Interesting.
In 1984 and again in 1986, the Populist Party was reborn, each time finding itself sabotaged from within, as populist movements usually are, and sputtering out. However, the inability of the populist movement to institutionalize itself with its own party has not by any means snuffed out the philosophy. In fact, the idea of populism today is familiar, blah, 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 blah. So basically, it was sabotaged from within, and not, of course...
It didn't have its chance to flower.
Yeah, not because, you know, he just gets into terrible fights with everybody.
In a sense, then he's right. It was sabotaged from within. He just doesn't say who did it.
Yeah. Maybe the problem is you.
Yes.
If this keeps happening to every group other than Liberty Lobby that you've ever been part in, maybe it's not the ADL every single time.
But listen, he's a Nazi, so it happens to every group that exists, no?
But in such a predictable way.
But usually they shoot each other.
Yeah.
This is like, at least doesn't happen in his groups, no?
This is a success, actually. This is a success story.
I mean, compared to other Nazis in America, he's quite successful, I would say.
Yeah.
In the sense that he didn't get shot.
He didn't get shot.
yeah, by another Nazi.
Yes.
Sure.
Or like he wasn't arrested for
pedophilia, right? Sexual assault of that kind.
That's a success.
Yeah.
There you go. Didn't get a bunch of money that he lost immediately.
Yeah.
But
and
he did get
caused him to lose his organization.
True.
And go bankrupt and sell his house. Fair.
But I mean, like, look at the A&P. They were like, what, sleeping on the floor?
I mean, compared to the A&P, this is this is a masterclass and finesse. And okay, so 85 was a bad year for the Populist Party. 86, it's kind of split completely into two factions.
Yeah.
So you have the Carto Loyalist faction, and Maureen Kennedy Salomon's part of that. A bunch of these other
Imagine
people.
being a Carto loyalist.
Yeah. And
free holy.
And the other side is centered around this guy, Bill Scherer. Who was another former George Wallace campaign guy, who was the head of the famously the head of the American Independent Party in California, and kind of had a very long career in third party politics, right wing politics in the West Coast.
A very long career in nothing.
I mean, you know.
I mean, third party like politics. Even if it's not Nazi, I mean, what it is.
There's, I think, just enough money cycling around this to keep the grift alive.
Okay.
Because we'll see what happens with the Populist Party later. They're talking about, like, you know, guys getting, they're like, and he took fucking a salary that now he has $30,000. And, you know, okay, $30,000 in you know, 80s is a lot more than it is today.
It'll get you around. Yeah.
But still, like, I mean these guys aren't like, you know, plundering lots of money. They're dealing with like small amounts, but enough to get by. You know what I mean?
I think there are actually more parties that matter in China than there is in the US. You know?
So Scherer had kicked Carto out of his own party, which I think is very funny. And he moved the headquarters to Arizona. Carto, in turn, found some plumber or electrician in Pittsburgh to head up his faction,
named Pete Shocker.
It's like John McIntyre or something. Right. These guys would kind of be his undoing later on, not that guy specifically, but other people from that area. Carto still remained undeterred, and he spent the whole year, I think, of like 86, 87 rallying his supporters nationwide. So like using his extensive mailing lists and contacting everybody that he knew that was probably still more on his side and getting them together into this kind of reconstituted populist party that then had to be reincorporated because Scherer had kicked him out of the other one or whatever. This kind of stuff gets complicated and is boring anyway. So who cares?
This whole thing is basically that old joke, he'd never join a party that have him as a member, but kind of like, you know, in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just happens later.
Yeah. And the point of all this is, of course, so that they could field a candidate in the next election.
Yeah.
That's right. In 88.
We need another cereal guy and another crystal girl. We're gonna do it right this time.
No, even better.
Huh?
Carto, like we said before, always had his finger on the pulse of what was new and hot.
Okay.
And so this newly reformed, renewed populist party selects none other than David Duke to be their presidential candidate in 1988. Right. And this is OG David Duke.
I think that at some point in this country that white people need to begin to defend their rights. Affirmative action is discriminating against white people. We find, again, a massive welfare program and a great deal of it's oriented toward blacks. We find crime racking our cities and racking our states.
This is what helps make him like a household name.
Yeah, right.
Because this is like his presidential candidacy with the Populist Party. I mean, he started with the Democrats and there was that whole thing. And then he gets into the Populist Party and that kind of pushes him into...
He started with the American Nazi Party. But okay.
Yeah. But in terms of like public persona, I mean, all the scandals that we now associate with David Duke, this is that, right? 88, candidacy with the Populist Party, and then after that, in those like congressional elections or whatever, Louisiana. So that's, you know, kind of the start of famous David Duke there.
Damn.
With, you know, Willis Carto and the Populist Party presidential elections of 1988.
Thanks, Bill.
His VP candidate, who didn't last long, but would later run for president as on the Populist Party ticket, although that's actually when Carto was already gone, is none other than the famous Bo Gritz, which I found out recently is pronounced Gritz and not Grits. I'd been wrong.
I feel like such a dick
for a long time.
People say it Gritz, and I'd be like, "What's wrong with you? Just say it right." But they were the whole time.
They were correct.
Maybe originally it was Grits, and then just Americans pronounced it Grits. This happens.
But no, we would say grits because grits is an important part of our culture. You know, like grits is something that you like eat all the time.
Yeah, maybe he says it grits because he doesn't want to be associated with something so soft as grits.
Yeah,
he's a hard fucking man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Soft ass porridge.
Yeah, he eats grits raw when he does it. If he does it at all. Yeah.
I mean, if it's a German last name, it would make more sense that it should be Grits than Gritz, I guess.
I don't know.
With that spelling, it's Grits. I mean, he says Grits. So he was shortly the VP on the ticket.
Word.
He actually then dropped out because he didn't like the optics of David Duke's Klan Association, but also because he thought that James Trafficant was going to be the candidate, which I don't know if you know about him. Famous Democratic politician from Youngstown, Ohio, who's known for some incredible corruption scandals.
Okay. Okay, and that was the guy Bo wanted.
Yeah, that's the one that Bo wanted.
Cool.
Now, if you don't know who Bo Greitz is, you probably should. And we'll definitely, I really want to do a Bo Greitz episode later in this arc, along with like a POW MIA mini arc. Because I think it's unique.
Hi, I'm Colonel Bo Greitz, United States Army Special Forces. I'm excited to be able to bring you a series of training videos known as SPIKE. SPIKE is an acronym. It stands for Specially Prepared Individuals for Key Events. My promise to you is that you can be as prepared, as educated, as trained, as equipped, as organized as Delta Force is. Now, how can I make such a promise? Well, first of all, I was the intelligence officer and reconnaissance chief for Delta Force. I set up the training schedule. They gave me a Legion of Merit for it, as a matter of fact, among other things. I have been all over the world as a Special Forces operative, training key and elite police and military units. I know the curriculum.
Did he come up in the Green Beret?
He might have. He came up when we talked about Ruby Ridge, obviously, because he was
the chief negotiator.
He also negotiated, or was supposed to come negotiate, or was asked to come negotiate with that one of those fucking UFO guys that ended up making a compound in Arizona that we talked about in the first F-Files ever.
Yes, right.
He was also that dude demanded Bo Greitz, but he wanted to shoot him.
I mean, Bo Greitz is a wild ass figure. I mean, they say that the character of Rambo is based off of him.
Okay.
He's the one of the most decorated special forces.
So he lied a lot.
Well, no, he did. He actually did go on those missions to try to find the POW MIAs in Southeast Asia, and they were like financed by like Clint Eastwood and shit like that.
But wait, like First Blood is him having a war against U.S. cops.
Yeah, that's like the second Rambo.
Second Rambo.
So how could Rambo be based on the sequel? Sequel Rambo was based on Bo Greitz.
It's based on, because he was one of the most decorated Green Berets of all time. He was like a major war hero of Vietnam.
Was he ever an outlaw in the U.S.?
I mean, yeah, in the sense that he became like a militia Nazi later in his life.
Okay.
But in between that, in between Vietnam and becoming like a militia Nazi and all this other kind of stuff, and becoming a Mormon or whatever, he he talks about it openly. Like he trained like death squads in Latin America. He trained the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. Like he did all of that like crazy like U.S. government shit, and then got into like the militia movement, into this like far right shit. So he was originally on the ticket with David Duke on the Populist Parties in '88.
And he was a celebrity at that point, right?
Yeah. But yeah, he dropped out, and then they selected, some rando. And Duke didn't do as well as they had in the previous election. I think they only got like 44,000 votes.
But still, like if you imagine like Coughlin at his height of popularity, when he tried to run for president, he got like 2,000 votes or something. You know what I mean? Like it's still decent for him.
And he's they're only on the ballot in like, I don't know, like 12 states or something. It's not even like a nationwide thing. Like they're struggling.
This is third party politics.
This is third party politics.
That's right.
You do well if you get 40,000 votes.
Yes. You get to keep the account.
Yeah, basically. So obviously this presidential campaign didn't go very well.
I mean, I'm not advocating supporting the Democrats or Republicans.
You are so coconut pill. Yeah, we all know it.
Yeah.
But look at their two presidential runs. In the first one, they had the guy that was running for president drop out during the race. The second one, they had the vice president drop out during the race.
Yes.
Okay, they get some votes, but it's not going too well. And then in predictable Carto fashion, it starts to fracture in like very important big ways right after the election.
Yeah.
Part of it was personal to some degree. People don't like Carto. But it also didn't help that the Populist Party was being audited by the Federal Election Commission for certain, perhaps financial improprieties, which led to a series of legal issues and tens of thousands of dollars of fines, which Liberty Lobby initially picked up the tab. They footed the bill for some of that, but then that becomes a big issue later on,
right?
Because 89, Carto's pushed out of the party again when it gets taken over by the Pennsylvania branch, headed by this dude named Don Wassell.
Don Wassell
moves the headquarters to Ford City, Pennsylvania, real small place. And Don Wassell and his crew of the Populist Party become known as the Ford City Gang by Liberty Lobby, whoever's still loyal to Carto that left the party or whatever. And this becomes a big issue in lots of issues of Spotlight. They dedicate a lot of time to the fight between Don Wassell and some of these others. And I have some of that. So if you'll allow me to.
What's the issue? Why are they fighting?
Well, there's a lot of issues. Well, first of all, again, they're being audited by the Federal Election Commission. There's money. Liberty Lobby took up the bill, but there's still more that they have to pay. But then, Carto's name's still showing up on papers. He's saying he's not part of it anymore. Right. Send the bill to Wassell. Wassell's I don't, fuck you. Who cares? Yeah. And then there's a lot of really great interpersonal allegations.
You imagine, so you're a Nazi whose whole thing is you're against the plutocracy and the financial schemers, the Jews and so on. Yeah. And then for decades you do nothing but have financial conflicts with other Nazis.
Yeah. That you settle by calling up your lawyers and
just lawyering up and doing that thing for decades.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but also accusing your fellow party mates of being secret Jews.
Yeah. Yes. It said he's meeting with ADL agents, Mossad, this and that. And the funny thing is, they call this Wassellgate.
I love it.
And in one of the Federal Election Commission documents about this, they cite Wassellgate and says, as mentioned above, said Wassellgate is currently among the many publications for which Piper, this is Michael Collins Piper, who's a close associate of Willis Carto. I think he was the editor, for a while of Spotlight.
Oh, okay.
And we mentioned him. You mentioned him, Fritz. I think.
He's come up before.
Really?
I mean, he's been around.
I was thinking about Frank Collins.
I think
but Michael Collins.
I in my brain, he's somehow connected to Ezra Pound and Eustace Mullins.
Oh, damn.
And
Eustace Mullins was close with Carto. He was an editor in various or contributed in various Carto publications.
Endless Return.
I think Eustace Mullins was even an editor in the Barnes Review.
Okay.
Anyway,
another Holocaust revisionist outlet.
Piper and 6 other defendants are being sued for libel. In addition, the Wassellgate booklet is merely a collection of false charges and bizarre ramblings and are not relevant to the FEC and the Act.
But relevant to us.
Yes, but relevant to us because, of course. So Piper felt the need to respond point by point to something that Wassell had sent out that was a series of false allegations about him and about the party and about Willis Carto. And one of them involves, so he goes paragraph by paragraph and then addresses each point that Wassell made about him. And one of them is, here's the lie. Michael Piper, who suffers from a severe case of alcoholism, has nursed an insatiable hatred for Wassell ever since his 2 attempts to rip the party off were refused. To which Piper responds, yes, I drink. So does Don Wassell. He has good reason to know how much I drink. We have stood side by side alongside other party leaders in numerous bars and various hotels around the country. Wait, unlike Wassell, however, I do not use marijuana. Further, if I nursed an insatiable hatred for Wassell as a result of his refusal to pay legitimate debts, I would not have continued to promote and fundraising, blah, blah, blah. But the issue of Wassel's drug use comes up over and over again because here's another lie, omission of fact. In the letter, Piper wrote that if Wassel ever again threatened him by mentioning taking up the matter with Piper's boss, Piper would, quote, rip your rotten little liver right out.
Damn.
Take that as serious as it's meant. And then he responds to, he's giving context to what that means.
Uh-huh.
The reference to a rotten little liver was quite pointed. During our conversation referred to above, Wassel alleged that I was under the influence for words to that effect when I made my request for reimbursement. Since Wassel has already informed me that he was a marijuana smoker, and since I am told both alcohol and illicit drugs damage the liver, I use the reference to a rotten little liver. Since that time, I've been told by former Populist Party National Chairman Tom McIntyre.
I was confused by the phrase. And
I was like, what? Is he sick?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
But Tom McIntyre, that he was aware of at least one instance wherein Wassel smoked marijuana at one gathering. And also at one occasion, McIntyre encountered Wassel at party headquarters in Ford City, evidently under the influence of some hallucinogen.
Nice.
Evidently, my instincts were correct.
Hallucinogen like marijuana.
Nice. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the kind
Maybe
of...
he was like trying not to drink and had hallucinations.
Maybe. Yeah. He cold turkeyed himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lost his mind.
Or Donnie Wassel was rolling up them big ones over in Ford City at the Populist Party headquarters, getting fucked up and chiefing all day.
Well.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was a ongoing debate going on and on in the pages of the Spotlight.
Awesome.
Carto dragged out people like respectable people like Klansman Robert Weems, to say that as founding national chairman of the Populist Party back in 1984, I heartily recognize the party today. Wassel has changed the historic party logo, the traditional party color, and he's rewritten the platform and the bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard he even intends to change the name. And he did change the name eventually. Now, this is 89. They still field Bo Gritz as the presidential candidate in 92.
Yes.
But that's a complete shit show for obvious reasons. They barely get it on the ballot in any states.
Yeah.
They're still being embroiled in this like legal conflict with the Federal Election Commission and Liberty Lobby and Willis Carto and everybody else.
Are they facing protests at all, or are they just off the radar, really? Except for like
facing protests by who?
By like people that are
anti-fascists. Anti-fascists prevent them from going on the ballot, I think in Washington or in Oregon. I forget where, somewhere in the Northwest.
That would hurt. Shit.
So there's definitely like pushback against them.
Mm-hmm.
So like things aren't going well for them. Carto's already out of the party at this point and bitter about it. Wassel shuts down the Populist Party in 95 and renames it to the American Nationalist Union.
Okay.
Which then I think got folded into a different organization, but I think now still exists. Wassel's still around. Like he's still on the internet somewhere. I found some like old blog of his.
Mm. That's just one letter off from anus. I'm sorry. I just have to point that out. I was thinking in my head, American
Wassel?
Nationalist Union Society, maybe American National. I couldn't get there, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. But despite, losing the party twice, Carto's still not dissuaded from his populist ideal. He continued to promote his idea of populism through a political action committee that he sets up called the Populist Political Action Committee.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a Carto name.
Exactly.
Yes. Sorry, say it again. The
Populist Action Committee.
Populist. Okay, it's a pack.
But basically, what they amount to is like Carto writing about different people, politicians that he likes or doesn't like in Spotlight. More or less, it's
okay. I see what's happening. Yeah, sure. It's just the whole thing is aging rapidly, and it's becoming increasingly demented and personal.
But like, you know, he does have like, you know, this is the era of Pat Buchanan.
Oh yeah.
Which is somebody that he does have a relationship with.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like,
Pat Buchanan was a fuck.
And supports to a certain degree. They had, you know, kind of nice things to say about anybody who they considered populist in one way or another. Including some like Reform Party people. Jesse Ventura, I think they liked some of his stuff.
All right.
You know, he at some point hates Ralph Nader and then later likes Ralph Nader. Mostly because like they start kind of hopping on the anti-globalization bandwagon in the 90s. I mean, they're already all about that, but you know, Carto's like, the left is against globalization. We're also against globalization. It's for different reasons, but we could work together.
He's still keeping like his finger on the, like he's following the trends.
He's following. He's not, and you know, this is still the 90s and like early 2000s that we're talking about here. So like, he's also writing favorable things about Chavez and obviously the same cast of politicians that you'd expect in Europe. Like, you know, they love the BNP. They love Le Pen. They like Zhirinovsky in Russia.
Okay.
Kind of typical stuff. But basically, that's more or less the extent of his, you know, whatever, action committee, populist action committee.
All right.
He basically goes back then to like publishing. Let's keep in mind also something that I mentioned early on in previous episodes is that kind of this whole time in the 70s, 80s, 90s, they do have a weekly radio show called This is Liberty Lobby, which puts them out on the airwaves nationwide.
People are hearing his voice.
Yeah. Well, not his voice. He has other people doing it.
Oh, right.
He's
makes
not doing
sense.
it.
Yes.
He's not talking. But then, of course, the 90s are completely marred by all this legal trouble. Liberty Lobby implodes. He, in 2001, after pretty much immediately after declaring bankruptcy and shutting the doors, Liberty Lobby starts the Barnes Review.
Yeah.
Or no, the Barnes Review actually starts in the 90s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Barnes Review happens in 94. Sorry. American Free Press is in 2001. So he starts the Barnes Review when he's having trouble with the Institute for Historical Review. And the Barnes Review is supposed to be that, but under a different name.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's named after some, you know, Holocaust denier, Harry Elmer Barnes, who was a friend of Carto's.
Yeah, the Tecumseh creator, I think, was also involved in Barnes Review.
Yeah, a lot of people were involved with Barnes Review because they're basically doing the same thing that the Institute for
Historical
Historical
Review. It's a very populist
Review.
move to like name a newspaper after your friend who no one knows about.
Well, now they know about him.
Yeah.
Barnes Review. There.
I now know about that. There's a guy named Harry Elmer Barnes because Willis Carto named a fucking newspaper out.
Yeah, now we all have to know that.
So yeah, American Free Press, which is like his other outlet, starts off in 2001, and that all goes until, you know, he kicks the bucket in at the age of 89 in 2015.
Damn. All right, long career. I mean, again, it's hard to judge a Nazi career even by their own standards.
Yeah,
but it was long. We can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question as to what his legacy is.
Yeah.
Because,
well, it's
Pat Buchanan. Well, I think even further than that. No, like,
but he had like actual connections, and like, I mean, we talk a lot about these conflicts with other idiots, but he had like connections with like powerful, like influential, politicians.
Absolutely.
No?
Yeah. And I mean, like I said in the last episode, if he'd gotten those $10 million, you know, cash in hand and not had to go through like a decades-long legal battle over it, who knows what they could have done.
I'll tell you what they could have done. I'm planning to cover a fella that Ray's actually talked about in the past named Roger Pearson. And this guy, I'm realizing right now, is basically if Willis Carto didn't fuck everything up. Roger Pearson is more or less that guy. Yeah. So we'll see this alternate history.
Still alive.
That's right.
Almost.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
he was born in 1927.
Yeah.
Wow. He's old.
So I don't know what's the name of the rational, not Wikipedia, but rational.
Rational Wiki. Something.
They
like
say he died last year.
Oh,
Wikipedia doesn't. So I don't know.
Well. Hey, listen, this is a free episode. So if you are Roger Pearson and you are alive
or if you know
dead,
if Roger Pearson's alive or dead,
let us know. Yeah, I could use that information for when I have to fucking cover him. That would be nice to have.
Yeah.
I would be curious though what Carto would have to say about the whole like populist revival in terms of like he would probably hate Trump's Zionism like tremendously.
No, but he would be like what's his name? Nick Fuentes guy.
Yeah, I was thinking about him too.
Exactly.
You know, that he'd still be like with Trump.
I mean, that's what Nick Fuentes is like criticizing Trump for.
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Carto
and that's why I think it is important not to completely downplay Carto and the influence of Liberty Lobby, because they were around for so long that like they undeniably had an influence on.
No, for sure. Like Nick Fuentes is like he inherited that.
I was thinking about him a lot today, actually, during this episode. Yeah.
He's I'm a Nazi, I'm not a Nazi branch of American Nazism. That kind of wants to attach itself to the Republican Party, but also criticize it. And
I mean, I think that's what the Populist Party is an interesting turn for him, right? Because the whole idea was that you can't really make it as a third party, but I guess he had to find that out firsthand.
Well,
in a pretty spectacular way.
It's 11.
He would love Tucker for sure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
He wouldn't like Trump, but I think he's useful.
If he liked guys like Huey Long, you know, I think he would be fine.
But did Huey Long like Jews?
Well, I don't believe so.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. That's usually what the bottom line was for him.
Also, I mean, Trump is like has several Jewish family members as well.
Right.
So
that's I think James Mason still likes Trump.
So that's the question. Would Carto be able to get over that? It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, many mysteries abound still.
Indeed.
What would have happened?
Yep. I guess that's the end for Carto.
If he was active like right now, I think they'd be like interviewing him on major cable networks still. You know what I mean?
So.
Like he's just one of these. There's so many hymns now. So many Cartos.
And that's it for Carto.
Yay! Finally, he's gone. He's done. But again, as we progress, all these guys keep coming back.
He'll keep coming back.
It's just one of the most tightly wound.
It's impossible to miss.
I think
Carto for the rest of this arc because he's going to be around until 2015.
I feel like everybody we talk about knows everybody we talk about in this arc.
Yeah,
like they're all best friends.
And we'll be crossing paths with them again. And I might read some stuff that's Carto enjoyed from the 60s.
Oh, romantic literature.
We'll see. Right. We'll see about that.
Well, I hope you do, because there's one thing I can't get enough of. It's the libbity lobbity.
Libbity lobbity.
So.
All right. See you later.
See you later.
Bye. Bye.
Hey there, all you free people enjoying your free episodes from The Empire Never Ended. Maybe scoot on over to patreon.com/tenepod and become a patron. We publish 3 additional premium episodes there alongside the 2 freebies each month. We're on Twitter too, also at Tenepod, but our Patreon is really where it's at. See you there, maybe? Yeah?